Imagine it's the final day of your sophomore year of high school. You're looking out at a baseball field, and suddenly, a loose bat flies through the air.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it strikes you right between the eyes and smashes your nose into a distorted U shape. Before you even lose consciousness, you've forgotten your own mother's name.
That is just terrifying.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. I'm your host, and today we're looking at how a catastrophic brain injury actually birthed one of the most powerful frameworks for human behavior and self-improvement ever developed.
Hey, everyone, I'm glad to be here to help decode this. And yeah, the physical trauma in that origin story is staggering. I mean, the soft tissue of his brain literally slammed into the inside of his skull.
Just brutal.
Right. Within a fraction of a second, he suffered a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, 2 shattered eye sockets, and severe brain swelling. He actually had to be put into a medically induced coma.
And the reason we're starting with that heavy, terrifying image today is because that specific event forced the victim, who eventually became the author of the material we're decoding today, to rebuild his life from absolute zero.
Yeah, he couldn't rely on massive leaps of progress anymore.
Exactly. His entire recovery had to be built on tiny, microscopic, daily routines. Atoms, essentially.
Which is where the concept of atomic habits comes from.
Right. So our mission today is to break down the mechanics behind these atomic habits. We'll explore the neuroscience of why we fail, and eventually we're going to dig deep into a highly specific, slightly uncomfortable tactic to guarantee you never break a good habit again.
Which honestly completely flips how we usually think about human willpower. We normally approach self-improvement as this massive, grueling mountain we have to climb all at once.
Oh, for sure. We've all bought into the myth of the radical overnight transformation.
Totally.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we want to build new behaviors, we first have to tear down your misconceptions about how progress actually works.
Right, we are deeply conditioned to chase explosive success.
But the core argument in our source material is about the compounding math of 1% improvements.
And that math is profoundly counterintuitive. I mean, getting 1% better every day doesn't sound like much, right?
No, it sounds basically invisible.
But over the long run, it alters your trajectory entirely. The text uses a great analogy. Consider an airplane flying from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C.
Oh, I love this one. If the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south as they leave LAX, a shift so small the nose of the plane moves just a few feet, they don't land in Washington, D.C.
Nope.
They land in a completely different part of the country, hundreds of miles away.
And that invisible shift represents the power of our daily habits. Over the span of moments that make up a lifetime, these tiny 1% choices determine the difference between who you are and who you could be.
It really leads to a fascinating realization, which is that your current outcomes are simply a lagging measure of your past habits.
Yes, that concept of a lagging measure is a massive paradigm shift.
Think about your own life right now. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Even the amount of clutter on your desk is just a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. You literally get what you repeat.
Which is exactly why focusing on goals is actually a flawed strategy.
Wait, really? Flawed.
Yeah, because goals are about winning a specific game. Systems are about continuing to play the game indefinitely. As the saying goes, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
I see. But if these tiny 1% changes to our systems are so powerful, why is it so incredibly easy to give up after a week?
That's the trap.
I mean, we've all been there. You eat salads for a week, you step on the scale, and literally nothing has changed. Why don't we see the magic of that 1% right away?
Well, it's because progress is not linear. And honestly, the human brain hates that. We expect that if we put in a week of hard work, we should immediately see a week's worth of visible results.
Right, instant gratification.
Exactly. But the most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are always delayed. So this creates a dangerous gap between what we expect to happen and what actually happens.
The text calls that the valley of disappointment, right?
Yes, the valley of disappointment. People put in weeks of work, see zero results, and feel entirely justified in quitting.
Which makes sense logically.
It does. But the work wasn't wasted, it was just being stored. It's a concept known as the plateau of latent potential.
Okay, so if the tangible results are delayed, what is actually happening in the brain when we try to build a new system?
So think of neuroplasticity, like hiking through a dense, overgrown jungle. The first time you try to establish a new habit, say waking up at 5 a.m., you are hacking your way through thick vines and underbrush with a machete.
Ugh, sounds awful.
It is. It's exhausting, slow, and highly inefficient. The brain naturally resists this high-energy state.
But every time you repeat the behavior, you stomp down those weeds a little more, right?
Exactly. And eventually, that jungle path becomes a dirt trail. Then it becomes a paved road, and finally an effortless superhighway.
Wow.
And breaking a bad habit is just the reverse. You have to stop using the superhighway and let the jungle slowly grow back over it. That takes time.
So if systems and neuroplasticity drive our physical progress, what actually drives the system itself? The material points to one fundamental core, which is identity.
Yeah, behavior change operates on 3 layers, much like an onion. The outermost layer is changing your outcomes, like losing weight or writing a book.
Okay.
The middle layer is changing your processes, so your habits or your gym routine. But the deepest layer, the very core, is changing your identity, your deeply held beliefs, your worldview, your self-image.
And most people try to change from the outside in. They start by saying, I want to write a book, which is purely outcome-based.
Right.
But true, lasting change is identity-based. It's shifting the internal narrative to, I am the type of person who is consistent and reliable.
Yes, because every habit you perform is driven by a neurological feedback loop. To understand identity, we have to look at the 4 steps of this loop.
Which are cue, craving, response, and reward.
Exactly. The brain scans the environment for cue, which triggers a craving to change your internal state. That craving leads to a response, the action itself, which finally delivers a reward.
Let's ground that in reality for a second. Take doom scrolling on a smartphone. The phone buzzes or the screen lights up. That's the cue.
Right.
But the craving isn't for the app itself, is it?
No, not at all. The craving is for the feeling of distraction or the anticipation of entertainment. You just want to change your state of boredom.
Makes sense.
Then the response is physically picking up the phone and opening the app. And the reward is that quick hit of dopamine you get from seeing a funny video or a new message.
And that loop completes in a fraction of a second.
Yep, constantly running in the background of our lives without us even noticing.
So what does this all mean? I mean, if behavior is just a split-second, unconscious loop running in the background, telling myself I'm a reliable person, sounds a bit like, fake it till you make it.
It can feel that way at first.
How does performing a tiny 2-minute habit actually change my core, deep-seated identity?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's because the relationship between identity and habits is a two-way street. Your identity shapes your habits, sure, but your actions also provide the evidence that shapes your identity.
Oh, I see.
Every single time you take an action, it is literally a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
So you're basically holding a continuous internal election.
Exactly.
Right.
And you don't need a unanimous vote to win an election. You just need a majority. You don't have to be perfect.
Right.
But every time you choose to write a single sentence, you cast a vote for being a writer. Every time you do one push-up, you cast a vote for being an athlete.
And over time, those votes accumulate. The evidence of your new identity becomes undeniable, and your self-belief actually shifts. Okay, so we've got the new identity as the target. We want to cast those daily votes, but we need a practical mechanical framework to actually rewire that 4-step feedback loop in the brain.
And this is where the 4 laws of behavior change come in. They align directly with those 4 steps of the neurological loop: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay.
To build a good habit, you must make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Let's look at the first one, make it obvious. Because over time, the cues that trigger our habits become completely invisible to us.
Oh, totally. Like the remote control sitting on the couch or the cookies on the counter.
Exactly. To change, we have to bring conscious awareness back to our environment. And there's a highly practical strategy here called habit stacking.
Yeah, habit stacking takes advantage of the fact that human behavior is highly interconnected.
Yeah.
We rarely do one single thing in isolation.
Right.
So the formula is really simple. After I perform my current habit, I will perform my new habit. You basically tie the desired behavior to something you already do without fail every single day.
Like after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. The coffee is the obvious, unavoidable cue.
Exactly. It gives the new habit a specific time and space to actually live in the physical world.
Then we move to the second law, which is make it attractive. This is all about the craving phase. And the neuroscience here is super fascinating because of how dopamine actually works.
Yeah, we often think dopamine is released only when we achieve a reward. But neurologically, dopamine actually spikes during the anticipation of the reward.
Wait, really? Before the reward even
Yep,
happens?
that dopamine spike is what drives the craving and motivates you to act. So by pairing an action you need to do with an action you want to do, you can artificially make the difficult habit more attractive.
That is brilliant. But the law that really hits home for me is the third law, make it easy. The law of least effort. There's a great analogy in the text about a bent garden hose.
Yes. Imagine holding a garden hose that is bent completely in the middle. Very little water can flow through. If you want more water to come out, you basically have two choices. You can crank up the valve at the spigot and try to force water through the bend using immense pressure.
Which is like relying purely on willpower and motivation. It requires high effort, high tension, and eventually the pressure causes something to burst.
Exactly. Or you can take the second option. You can simply remove the bend in the hose and let the water flow naturally.
That sounds much better.
It is. Making your habits easy is about removing the friction in your environment. You redesign your life so the right actions are just the path of least resistance.
And the ultimate tool for unbending the hose is the 2-minute rule. You take any new habit and scale it down until it takes 2 minutes or less.
Right.
So read before bed becomes read 1 page, or fold the laundry becomes fold 1 pair of socks.
Exactly. Unbend the hose.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, let's be honest. I've tried learning a new language before. I committed to studying an hour a day, and by Wednesday, I totally quit.
Happens to the best of us.
But it feels a little silly to get hyped up about studying a language for just 2 minutes or folding a single pair of socks. Is that actually doing anything, or are you just tricking yourself?
Well, it feels silly to the logical brain, but to the neurological feedback loop, it is profound. The point of the 2-minute rule isn't just to do one tiny thing.
Okay.
The point is to master the habit of simply showing up. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You cannot optimize a habit that does not exist.
That makes total sense. You have
Yeah.
to standardize before you can optimize. If I can't master the basic skill of opening the language app for 2 minutes a day, I have zero hope of mastering advanced grammar later.
Right, you have to pave the dirt road first.
And that brings us to the ultimate question. Making good habits easy and obvious is fantastic for starting. But how do we stop slipping back when the initial excitement fades?
That is the million-dollar question.
How do we hold our feet to the fire? Which brings us right to the core focus of today's deep dive, an incredibly powerful concept drawn straight from Chapter 17 of our material.
Yes, Chapter 17.
This is where we invert the fourth law. The fourth law is make it satisfying, which is driven by the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated, and what is immediately punished is avoided.
And the operative word there is immediately. Human evolution has wired our brains to prioritize instant gratification.
Because of survival, right?
Exactly.
No.
The cost of a bad habit like failing a class because you played video games instead of studying or developing heart disease from a poor diet is located in the distant future.
Yeah.
But the reward, the craving, the dopamine spike from the video game or the junk food is right now.
So we have to figure out a way to bring the future pain into the present moment. And the core actionable tactic to do this is the accountability partner and the habit contract.
Yes, this is a formal written agreement where you state your commitment to a habit and you establish a severe, immediate punishment if you fail to execute it.
Okay.
Then you have 1 or 2 accountability partners actually sign it to enforce it.
I have to push back on this, though. Giving someone permission to enforce a contract, maybe even fine me money or publicly call me out if I skip the gym.
I know it sounds intense.
It sounds like weaponizing shame. Is creating extreme social pressure and anxiety really a healthier, better tool than just developing personal discipline?
What's fascinating here is that relying on personal discipline is fundamentally a short-term strategy.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the brain so heavily overvalues instant gratification, sheer willpower will inevitably fail you when you are tired, stressed, or distracted. Willpower is just a feeling, and feelings fluctuate.
Ah, so it's cranking the valve on the bent garden hose again.
Exactly. A habit contract alters your environment and leverages evolutionary biology. We are deeply social creatures. For thousands of years, our survival depended on remaining in good standing with our tribe.
That is very true.
We desperately do not want others to have a lesser opinion of us. A habit contract takes that distant consequence of failure and drags it right into the present moment.
So knowing someone is actively watching you overrides the short-term desire.
It introduces an immediate, tangible cost to inaction. Consider the real-world example in the text of Brian Harris, an entrepreneur who created a highly detailed habit contract.
What did he do?
He outlined his health goals, his exact daily habits, and the severe penalties if he failed, like having to dress a certain embarrassing way or pay a significant cash fine to his trainer and his wife.
Wow, cash fines to his wife.
Yeah. He made the cost of skipping his workout far more painful in the present moment than the discomfort of actually doing the workout.
He essentially made the act of failing immediately, socially, and financially unsatisfying.
And it works because it removes the internal negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
When you wake up tired, you usually debate with yourself, like, should I run today? Maybe I'll just run tomorrow.
I do that all the time.
Right. But a habit contract shuts down the debate entirely. The cost of not running is $50 in public embarrassment. You just put your shoes on and go.
All right, so we've established the atoms, we've stacked our cues to make them obvious, we've unbent the hose to make them easy, and we've locked them in with a habit contract so we can't back out.
Right.
Once you are incredibly consistent, what is the final hurdle? How do you move from being just consistent to being truly great at something?
Moving to mastery requires understanding the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities.
Right on the edge.
Yes, not too hard, which causes anxiety, and not too easy, which causes boredom. Just right.
But the real danger isn't that the tasks get too hard, is it? The greatest threat to long-term success is not failure, but boredom.
Exactly. As your daily routines become established, they naturally become less interesting. They run on autopilot.
Yeah, the excitement wears off.
Anyone can work hard when they feel highly motivated and excited. But the ability to keep going when the work is no longer novel, when it feels like a grind, is what separates the professionals from the amateurs.
Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals stick to the schedule even when it isn't exciting. The equation for true greatness is basically habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery.
This raises an important question, though. What happens when habits become so automatic that we stop paying attention entirely?
Oh, that's a good point.
The massive upside of habits is that we can perform complex tasks without expending mental energy. But the downside is that we stop noticing tiny errors. We stop seeking that 1% improvement.
You just coast on the superhighway you build.
Yes. And this is why continuous reflection and review is mandatory. You have to establish a system, whether it's a weekly journal, an annual review, or a coaching check-in, to remain conscious of your performance over time.
Otherwise, you're just optimizing for a past version of your life, not your future potential.
Precisely.
Well, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. The core takeaway is that to become the person you deeply want to be, you do not need radical overnight transformations.
No, you don't.
You need 1% shifts. You need to focus on systems over goals, understanding that every tiny action is a vote for your new identity.
You need to unbend the garden hose.
Yes. Unbend the hose of your environment to make good habits easy, and leverage human nature by using an accountability partner to make failure immediately painfully unsatisfying.
It really is a profound framework for taking conscious control over the unconscious background processes that dictate our reality.
It is. But there is a final, slightly provocative thought to leave you with. We spend all this time building these atomic habits, and they deliver incredible benefits, but there is a hidden downside.
Rigidity.
Exactly. Habits can lock us into previous patterns of thinking. The tighter we cling to a specific identity like I am an athlete or I am a rigid planner, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it when our circumstances inevitably change.
It's the danger of becoming too rigid in your own self-image.
To illustrate this, consider a concept from the Tao Te Ching. Men are born soft and supple, dead. They are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant, dead. They are brittle and dry.
That's powerful.
Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail.
It is a beautiful reminder that everything is impermanent. Life is constantly shifting around us, and our systems must shift with it.
Which brings us all the way back to the visceral reality of where this all started today. The catastrophic injury, the shattered bones in a young man's face.
Right.
When things are hard and stiff, they break under severe impact. To survive that baseball bat to the face, to truly master his behavior and rebuild his life from absolute zero, he couldn't be rigid.
He had to be adaptable.
He had to build atom by atom. So the final question to mull over today is this. Are the atomic habits you've built serving your future self, or are they locking you into an identity you've outgrown? To truly master your behavior, your identity must flow around obstacles like water.